Hey everybody, this is Mike at Mike's Total Dragon channel, and today we are going to be talking about Absolute Batman, the flagship title for DC's Absolute imprint. We're going to talk a little bit about what I liked, what I didn't like. Um, First, I kind of got to say that I am a longtime Batman fan, and over the past couple of years, I really haven't enjoyed the direction that the character has been going in. He seems to be almost, has drifted really far away from his, what I think works best for him is essentially, what I like to call the Dark Knight Detective version, the kind that you would see in, the old Brave and the Bold comics, the Alan Grant, Norm Brayfogle stuff. That character, a guy who was a superhero, but he was not, super powerful, over the top. Prep time was not as prevalent as it is now, and it seems like over the last couple of years, probably longer than that, honestly, the Batman has just turned into a character who is essentially unstoppable. He always has prep time that he can fall back on, that writers can fall back on. He would finally, and I kind of stopped reading. I did stop reading Batman and Detective during the Zardasky failsafe stuff when he survived, Batman that is, survived a re-entry into space. At that point, I realized that this character was no one he was no one that I was familiar with anymore. He was Batman in name only. There was never any Bruce Wayne stuff. There was just Batman 24/7, surviving incredible feats. And I understand that it's a comic book, and we kind of have to suspend a little bit of logic and common sense about what a human can do, especially someone like Batman who exists in a world of superpowered people. If we were really to treat this, if we were to treat this reality wise, a guy who had no powers and went out to fight crime nightly would last probably about a day and a half. you know, so I understand that we kind of have to go along with it a little bit, and I'm fine with that. But I felt like that has been stretched to the point of just like, I'm done with this. This is not the character I want to associate with. So that being said, obviously as a big Batman fan, and I was someone who was very hesitant about Absolute Batman, and hearing about it, and especially the look, dude's a hoss. Look at him. He's just like, it's a total 180 from what the previous version of Batman that we know. So I still wanted to give it a chance and check it out. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. Creative team, we got Scott Snyder, Nick Dragotta, I believe that's how it's pronounced, and Frank Martin here on inks. Now, I have to say, right out the gate, this version of Batman right here is definitely a choice. Having him look like, basically if Zangief from Street Fighter put on a costume and went out to fight crime, that's definitely a stylistic choice. It's not one that I would have went with. However, it definitely is something that when you see it, you will remember it. It is a picture of Batman and a portrayal of Batman that we have not seen before. At least not one that wasn't in, maybe an alternate timeline. The Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns Batman, he was kind of, yoked up and buff like this, just a big old monster of a man. So let's get this started here. We'll go ahead and open it up. Right here, we've got a young Bruce. That tells us right away that this is a flashback. Absolute Batman, The Zoo, Part 1 of 5. striking 2-page panel right here, 2-page spread here. Just a gun. We know how much that's taboo in Batman's world. Then on these next couple pages, we're introduced to Alfred Pennyworth. This is the absolute Alfred. He comes riding in on a motorcycle, monologuing the whole way. That lets us know right out the gate, this isn't your grandpa's Alfred. This isn't an Alfred in which he makes tea and finger sandwiches for Bruce. You know, he appears to be some sort of you know, secret agent, some sort of operative for some sort of you know, like FBI, CIA, what do they call it, MI6 or whatever. He definitely seems to be a guy that's working for them in town. Now this page here, I did enjoy this. You've got a guy working out on a heavy bag, reciting his mantras. No fear, this is your city. No weakness. Working out on that heavy bag, and that really leads us to believe that that is Bruce Wayne right there training. And then they pull a little switcheroo on us right here. Bruce is this big hoss looking guy who's just demolishing the bag. As he's demolishing the bag, we're having more flashbacks to Bruce's childhood. His dad's a teacher. They're at the zoo. And all of a sudden, gunshots are fired. It snaps Bruce out of his flashback and just wallops and demolishes the heavy bag he's working on. We see here that Waylon, I keep wanting to say his last name is Jennings, but that's not right. Anyway, he was the guy who was Killer Croc in the regular continuity. And here he's just a guy who has a crocodile and runs a gym. We got a picture right here of Bruce with his childhood friends. Waylon. He mentions that Ozzy hooks him up with an exotic pet license so he can keep his crocodile. Ozzy is probably who he's referring to as Oswald Cobblepot, which in our reality is the Penguin. Now this panel right here is really interesting because it mentions, he's saying, Waylon that is, I'm having everyone over to the game tonight. Eddie, Harvey, Oz, even Selina to come out. Now that lets us know right there, between that panel and this one right here, Bruce's childhood friends are his arch enemies in our universe. Eddie Enigma, Harvey Dent, Oswald, that's the Riddler, Two-Face, Penguin, Selina, Catwoman. So he knows all them and grew up with them in childhood. Now we cut to right here, which is our local gang, our mob. They're talking about the Party Animals, who's been the group has been terrorizing Gotham. And one of the things they mention in regards to this group, the Party Animals, I mean, they're really, really terrible. You know, they you know, they're supposed to be bad guys, of course. Look, there's someone who gets stabbed in the eyes. But a lot of the stuff they talk about is, you know, they've blown up public vehicles, public places. You know, children have been caught in the crossfire and have died. This is a really awesome picture right here. Between this mixed in with the news media recaps. Bruce standing on the ledge, fixing to go into action. So these party boys, or party animals, I'm sorry, are really nothing to play with. They're like incredibly over the top gang. You know, they're not purse snatchers. They're murdering kids. They're murdering families. Police Commissioner Gordon, the public speaking, saying they are no longer going to sit here and take that. And this is a very realistic scene here, these 2 pages, where the public is just taking Commissioner Gordon to town about how far and how fast their city has gone downhill and how unsafe it is. Meanwhile, we've got Alfred. He's spying on the whole situation, reporting to the people that he works for. Party animals show up. They're opening fire. Batman makes his first appearance right here. Whatever you hear, do not open this door. He's telling that cop, which is Barbara Gordon. She called Commissioner Gordon Dad. He called her Barbara. So that's his daughter. In our world, she's Batgirl. Batman enters the scene. Just a really awesome action shot here. And this page right here is just an incredible page. Look at that. That's the splash page for your ass right there. Just Batman looking like a big, huge hoss. He's using his cape as a weapon, grabbing people almost like a whip. This is kind of really like a scene out of the Arkham Asylum games. Arkham Asylum, Arkham City games. This is one of the new tricks that he has. Let me use the horns on my hat as knives. How edgy. Alfred's broke down his fighting style as basically being predominantly a striker. This guy here, he tells Batman, get out of our way. Batman says, nope, joke's on you. My bat symbol turns into an axe. He ends up chopping that dude's hand off. This black silhouette here with the hand on the red is really striking. It's a panel that just grabs your eyes, just makes you look at it. It stands out. It's one that you'll remember. Alfred leads a little helping hand here on the escaping punks by detonating a bomb. Alfred confronts Batman. That doesn't work out too terribly good for Alfred. And then right here, we kind of start to get into a little bit of origin of Batman, Bruce Wayne. Kind of shows him growing up. So basically all this is just, I'm going to kind of speed through this a little bit, is a recap of that when Bruce was a child, he was on a zoo trip with his father and a bunch of other classmates, and they had a shooting at the zoo. Somebody showed up with a gun and opened fire at the Gotham Zoo, shot a bunch of random people. Bruce's father was one of them, and it really affected Bruce. We kind of see right here, this page, we see kind of like a little journey that Bruce goes on, you know, where he decides he wants to fight crime. You know, he goes to college, he's an athlete, he didn't want to become a pro football player, he starts studying stuff. Basically all the typical stuff that we see when Bruce becomes Batman, you know, mastering mechanics, mastering chemistry, criminal psychology, military tactics, learning the city. But the difference is right here, Bruce gets a basically blue collar job with the city of Gotham learning the lay of the land, learning the city, the subway, the architecture, and works his way up, learning all the buildings, learning what streets go where, learning the subway system. So instead of him going on a quest across the world to study with teachers, he stays in house, stays in Gotham, and learns everything about Gotham that he needs, studies at college all its tactics to become a proficient crime fighter. So right here, Alfred has been able to suss out Batman's lair, which is basically, instead of being underground, this time it's above ground. Batman doesn't appreciate Alfred having the drop on him, and he opens fire on Alfred. But we learn right here that the gun has been modified. Batman is off into the night. Now this page right here, wow, this is a beautiful shot. The moon, Batman on his big motorcycle. Just a great way to end this book. And then, of course, it's not ever a Batman book unless you have the Joker. So he's teased on the very last page, on the very last panel. The Joker has already showing up. So that was Absolute Batman. It was quite a bit I liked about it. When I read this, I was really surprised. Because the pictures I had seen of it was just, I had only seen what pages had been put out there. The pages of him using his logo on his chest emblem as an axe, him using the points on his head as daggers, and they really kind of come out of context. They really kind of looked like they were just trying to make Bruce, like Batman, someone out of a Mortal Kombat game. Now that being said, I still think the idea of Batman's logo being a axe, you know, that's detachable from him, and him having spikes on top of his head, you know, that he can detach and throw, I find that kind of, you know, excessive for excessive sake. You know, I find it almost like 90s, you know, but it's something different, and that's what they want to go with here on Absolute. They don't want to basically, I mean, if they were going to keep it as Batman as is, then there would be no reason to launch the Absolute line, because you could just get that from the All-In Batman or the All-In Detective. So they've made a couple of changes here that definitely makes it stand out from the other Batman books on the shelf. Batman's origin being tied in to his dad being a teacher, and there being a shooting, and Batman's dad ushering the kids into a separate room at the zoo, so they're not involved in the shooting, and him basically becoming a victim is, I think, probably the right move to make. You know, it's definitely a shooting, you know, a mass shooting event is probably, you know, sadly, it's a lot more prevalent, you know, and it's a lot more, you know, a lot more of a tragic occurrence. Not saying that someone's parents getting murdered in an alley is not a tragic occurrence, not, you know, by a long shot, but getting, you know, that's a mass shooting like that. That's something that's definitely, like they say, is ripped from today's headlines, and it's something that occurs all too often, sadly. So them having that take place is kind of yet another instance of them distinguishing this book from the main line. So that I will say that the choices they made in regards to that being Batman's origin, Batman staying in Gotham City to learn all about it instead of traveling the world, they're good touches, great moves that were made to, like I've been saying, to distinguish this from the mainline book, separate itself. Now that being said, I do have some problems with it. Like I've said before, I don't think that this Batman book, is aimed at longtime readers. It's aimed at people who want to get into comics but don't know where to start. Now, that's not to say that if you're a long-time reader that you can't pick it up and enjoy it. I enjoyed it far more than I thought I would. But like I said, I'm not someone who wants to see a Batman that swings an axe and cuts off someone's hand, or someone that can, detach the points from their head and use them as knives. I'm not here for that. However, I will say that Scott Snyder, he has a feel for Batman, and he really, in this book here, he really was able to capture the essence of Batman, what makes Batman Batman. He was able to capture that even though he made changes. You can still, like, instead of traveling the world, he stayed in Gotham and learned everything at college, familiarized himself with the city for working for the city and becoming an engineer. So he was able to learn all of that by staying in Gotham, and that way we don't have to see the Bruce Wayne traveling the world anonymous, studying with multiple masters of martial arts and studying with the great detectives and manhunters of the world, police investigators, which is another thing that does not really sit well with me. Is I would like to see a Batman who does detective work. I would like to see a Batman who is the world's greatest detective. Now, because he did not travel the world studying with people, and all he got was book knowledge from Gotham University, are we going to be able to see a Batman who is doing crime work? Is he taking samples? Is he doing fingerprints, forensics, all that type of other stuff? That is something that I kind of wonder about, something that I would like to see more of, which I don't know if we're going to get, because this Batman, one of the things that they said is this is a Bruce Wayne Batman who does not have all of the resources that billionaire Bruce Wayne had, which to that I'm kind of, he doesn't have all of billionaire Bruce Wayne's resources, but he has a bulletproof suit, and he has a cape that acts as a whip that he designed, and he has a off the books building that sits above the sky. That kind of feels like talking out of both sides of your mouth. So maybe, I think one of the best portrayals I've seen where there was a Batman who did not have all the resources that billionaire Bruce Wayne had was in Batman Incorporated, when it was on a Native American reservation, and it was two guys who were looking up to Batman and basically were running it out of a shed in their backyard. And when Batman shows up, he says, wow, it really does work. Batman really does work, without all the gadgets and everything. So I kind of would have liked to have seen them adhere to that a little bit more. But, you kind of get what you get. The other thing that I would like to see, I hope they do, is I'm someone who also, in addition to liking Batman, I do like Bruce Wayne. I would like to see more Bruce Wayne in the Batman mainline book. I would like to see more Bruce Wayne in this book. One of the things that they touched upon is Bruce Wayne is childhood friends with his rogues gallery the absolute versions of the Riddler and Penguin and Catwoman, etc., etc. So basically, he grew up around, roughnecks, people who, were not the creme de la creme of society like he does in the mainline Batman book. So that could be interesting. I think that could be really well done. It's definitely something that we've never seen before. A Batman, Bruce Wayne, who didn't grow up with all the benefits, and kind of got a feel for the street and for everything at ground zero. Working and knowing how the other half lives, people on the other side of the tracks live. So hopefully they'll touch on that a lot, because if Batman's dad and his mom's still alive too, that's one thing that is touched upon in this. Batman's mom is still alive. She did not die because she wasn't there. Only his father died. So that will be something. Batman was raised in a single parent home. They didn't have a ton of money unless his mother has some other job, which is mentioned as being really well to do. But his dad was being a teacher, and we know that the teacher salary isn't terribly high. So that could be definitely a challenge for a single mom raising Bruce, which, if she was working 2 jobs, would mean that he had more free access to run the streets, hang out with people that normally she might not have approved of. So maybe they'll touch on all that. I'm sure they will. Scott Snyder is a very competent writer. He's been around for quite a while. He's wrote some really good things. But that's really kind of all I have to say about it. I don't know if I will pick this up after issue 2 or issue 3. But I can definitely see where, if you are someone who is new to comics and you don't want to get, bogged down with continuity, that this book would appeal to you. It is something that you can get in on the ground floor of, and for better or worse, that's something that everyone is into nowadays. People feel like they have to get there on day one to be part of a book, be part of a storyline or what have you. They feel like they're going to miss out on something. They're not going to understand what's happening. Which, to that, I'm always I always say, it's Batman. Who doesn't know what Batman does at this point? We all know his origin and why he, what he does, what his abilities are, or what have you. So, but I can definitely see the allure for Absolute Batman. I just, as someone who is a longtime fan and longtime reader of comics, I don't know if this was launched with me in mind. Which, if not, I'm fine with that. I recently read Batman All In, the first issue in the All In book, and I thought it was incredible. I really enjoyed it way more than I did enjoy Absolute. So, but however, I think the people that pick up Absolute Batman are going to enjoy it. I think it's a great book to get people into the shops, and I think that's what we all want. So, on that level, I think it'll be a success. Hopefully, they're able to keep up the momentum. I have to admit, I was kind of surprised when they already have Joker on the last page. Bringing him in this soon, I kind of don't really know how I feel about that. Let the book breathe a little bit before we bring in Joker. I always feel like there's way too much Joker stuff, and they've run him into the ground, and he needs to go away and disappear for 5 years before we see him again. We're overexposed to Joker. So hopefully bringing Joker in already doesn't derail the book. So I guess we'll only see. Time will only tell. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that while I don't think this book is for me as a longtime reader, however, I really think new folks are going to dig it. and I can always get behind new people getting into comics and reading comics. So until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.